Everybody knows everybody in this town.
This guy's a people person, everybody.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
A mentor does not have to be somebody in your career field.
The old guy talking to the young guy.
Grass is never greener on the other side, so you really have to nourish your side of the lawn and figure out what's going to work for me.
You want to be with a company with high standards.
You have to count your wins, but also your losses.
There's a lot of aha moments, and I try really hard to lean into them and remember them.
I've learned that if I can have a positive attitude, that people will follow.
This guy makes it happen, everybody. Welcome, everybody, to episode 7 of the How They Crushed It podcast, sponsored by Direct Mortgage Loans, my wonderful place of employment. We've got a good friend of mine, Andrew Haynes from the Atlas Group here today. He runs events for them. He's got a tremendous story. He's crushing it. He has crushed it, and I have full confidence he's going to continue to crush it. So looking forward to talking to him. Welcome, everybody, to episode 7 of the How They Crushed It podcast, hosted by Direct Mortgage Loans, my employer, the wonderful place that I work. Today's guest is my good friend, Andrew Haynes from the Atlas Group. He's got quite the story. He's an up-and-comer in this town who a lot of you know and a lot of you have crossed paths with. And I'm pumped to hear his story and get into it with him today. He's definitely crushing it, and he's got a lot to teach us. So, Andrew, welcome.
Dean, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Always. And little known fact for those out there, Andrew is one of our biggest fans.
Certainly am.
He texts me on the release date every other week when we put one of these out. He gives me a summary by like 9:15 in the morning, which I always look forward to.
Always go out in the morning, listen to it.
When we were prepping today, he knew all the lead-ins in the segments. So our segments, everybody, we're gonna do some rapid fire stuff with Andrew, some of the most Googled stuff out there, and see how you do versus Google. We're gonna talk about Andrew's story, Andrew's sales and marketing story, and what Andrew's doing right now to keep crushing it. So I guess starting, Andrew, even before we jump into the rapid fire stuff, you're working for Atlas.
Working for Atlas. I'm doing the parties at the Valley Inn and the Oregon Grille.
Oregon Grille and Valley Inn. If you need help with a party at any Atlas store, Andrew's your guy. But Andrew, I got some questions. I wasn't letting you peek either.
Let's go.
The first one I always do, and I've seen you out at the bars, since it's called How They Crushed It, what's your favorite crush flavor?
I like a limeade crush.
Limeade, that is one that nobody's answered before. And do you know the origin of the Orange Crush originally?
You know I don't, but I love to enjoy them.
The Orange Crush was, we believe, invented in West Ocean City. So when next time you're down the beach, you'll have to go, I'll tell you the place, you can go in search of it. But tell me again, how'd you get to this flavor?
Limeade crush. I just kind of, I was over Orange Crushes, and you go out, they don't have freshly squeezed orange juice, so I just kind of switched to the lime and the lemon. And I
think the last time I saw you out at a bar, we had an Orange Crush together, though. Yes. I think we did. But okay, here's one that I've been meaning to ask you, and I've been saving it for today. Are you a Swiftie?
I'm not really a Swiftie, but I can appreciate her. I think she's a little plain. I hate to say it, but
oh my goodness, the girl behind the camera, look at her face. She's a Swiftie.
I don't get offended.
A little plain, but I appreciate what she's done.
Yeah.
That's funny. So I Googled this one, and I'll tell you what answer came up, I believe, but what's your favorite Atlas restaurant? For those in Baltimore, Atlas has a bunch of great restaurants around this town, and I know you've been to all of them. What's your favorite?
I think you can't go wrong with a Zumi. If you go down in the spring, sit on the water, have the harbor, showcases Baltimore, and you get great sushi.
Tell them Andrew sent you when you go down there,
Absolutely.
Everybody. Okay, so you're not a Swiftie. I would have guessed you would have been.
Yeah, I just think for, all she's got going on, she's a little plain, Dean.
Okay, well, I'm being there. I've got my son, who you know very well, and the woman behind the camera who are trying to convert me. So this was very topical. I watched I watched the Heiress movie over the weekend. Anyway, so Andrew, we like to talk for a while about, just hear your story. You're from Baltimore. Tell us a little bit about the little Andrew story. And, you're in business now. You're an up-and-comer. You're doing great, helping and working at Atlas. But just talk us through, little Andrew was around, and now little Andrew's working, or I'm sorry, tall Andrew is working for Atlas and really crushing it, helping out these two stores. Talk to us about your story.
Yeah, well, I started, as at the Baltimore Country Club, and I was in the pool cafe attendant business. And, I really liked that, but it wasn't sustainable. So I went to college and was looking for a summer job coming back. Mom and dad are like, you need a job. Yeah,
they don't want to give you money all the time.
And the country club actually wouldn't have me back. We had so much fun the last summer that I didn't get invited back.
You said we, so it wasn't just you.
Me and my friends. I had a lot of friends there that weren't asked back that year.
Okay.
So it was my freshman year of college, and I came back that summer, and my friend worked at the Valley Inn and said, come host with us.
You were a host at the Valley Inn as a freshman in college, and here you are, many years later.
Many years later.
Still doing
different ownerships and.
Talk us through that. So you're a host, so you come back in the summers. I mean, get us through some of that.
I hosted for a good summer, and I loved it. And then I just kind of really started loving the restaurant business. I loved being with people, and I loved the office side of it. And we had an event planner at the time who actually, you know, whatever was going on, she didn't love it, and she was on the way out. And I could tell that. So I kind of started getting in there. I was like, well, do you need any help with parties?
You're still in college at this point.
I was still in college. It was a summer job, but I just really wanted to do something, almost get an internship, and it felt so natural. So she actually was like, yeah, the next week I came and started to help her out in the event office. This is after I'd hosted for a year. And then she quit the following week.
Oh my God, so what happens? Because you're in college.
Yeah, I'm in college. It's a summer job.
You are a college graduate.
I am now a college graduate. Good. So I made it through. But I was in college, and I was so nervous. So I went the whole summer just kind of filling in and making it happen.
And so you're nervous. Was this a fake it till you make it kind of situation?
It was fake it till you make it. I'd had 1 week of experience. She had trained me maybe just to interface the basics on the event software. And then she kind of left. And just the owner was, nobody came in. And
what were you studying in college?
I was studying communications.
Okay. Because this guy's a people person, everybody. Yeah. A little bit. Okay, so you come back the next summer, what happens?
So then I went back to school, and I guess he hired somebody. So he hired an event planner. And then when I came back that summer, I, really asked, I said, could I be the event intern? I loved it so much. So she took me under her wing and really taught me the ins and outs of the business. And then, COVID hit.
Right, I'm aware.
So then I was really stagnant. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I'd only been working in the restaurant. And then the general manager at the time, I guess, left the Valley Inn, and then the event planner got her job. So then the owner of the Valley Inn called me. It was my senior year of college. It was 2 months till graduation. Do I want to come and run the events?
That's phenomenal. So, you and I have talked offline about this a little bit, about being you and I have talked about being ambitious and trying to let people know what it is you're looking to do. Talk us a little bit about some of that. I mean, you had to have made an impression to have somebody reach out to you proactively asking you,
So I was pretty honored. He told me he wanted me. He held the job for me for 2 months. So then I came in and I had to really hit the ground running and start just a backlog of work before I could get started and really organize and figure out how we were going to run that summer.
I've asked this question on some other podcasts. I mean, so you're naive at this point.
I was very naive, very overwhelmed.
And talk us about that. You're naive. You're just kind of showing up every day and putting one foot in front of the other.
And I just started doing it. And I was lucky I'd had the experience being an event server at the restaurant. So I've worked all through the different positions. I started as a host, and then I saw, the event planner. So I went up and I actually worked a lot of private parties. So I would be in the office during the day planning the parties, and then I would work the parties at night just to, figure out how it worked and the function, how to set the buffets.
Yeah, but you just said something that stuck with me. You were just doing it.
Yeah, I was just figuring it out, just doing it.
And is that advice you give people?
Yes. I just make it happen. I always tell people, just make it happen.
I agree with that one. I've said that to people that have worked for me. I've said that to people. I've said the people that live in my house, my kids who I've told them, sometimes you just got to do it. And not knowing what you're going to do is sometimes the absolute best path.
It was absolutely shocking. I wanted to do something in a hospitality, I knew, but more of a client relations side of things, and I just ended up with this great situation.
So Atlas takes over, right? I mean, you were at this point you're working for Valley, and Atlas
just the Valley Inn, doing events, and then the owner at the time, sold it. And I think he did have something to do kind of setting me up with, because Atlas came in and they were very willing to keep me on, and I definitely needed some learning experiences, so they definitely worked with me on getting me a mentor within the restaurant group.
Oh, that's great. So talk to me, and we'll talk about that a little bit. I didn't know that part of your story. So you're just doing it.
I'm just doing it, and then all of a sudden I'm sit down, and I think I had, maybe it was the day before they were coming to tell us he had sold the Valley Inn, and the owner had given me the heads up and was like, just, I've sold you. Sold the company.
You've been sold?
I've been sold to the Atlas Restaurant Group. And I was so nervous to go work for corporate because I didn't have I was very green in the sense of the corporate environment.
Right. So they give you a mentor, and how did that go? Talk me through that.
You know what, really well. I felt like I'd learned a lot just from somebody willing to listen to me, and that my mentor understood my situation, which I thought was key. He was just there to listen and give support and ideas, and he never made me feel that I wasn't adequate.
Because you're a kid at that point.
You're
22, I'm guessing.
And I wasn't confident. I did not have the confidence I had now. So I was very nervous that I was going to get put out of a job and I wasn't going to be able to perform to the Atlas standard.
Andrew, let me ask you, let's time out and take a pause right at that moment in your career, because I love to tell our listeners, things they can take away from this, no matter what industry they're in. So somebody just out of college and they're trying to figure it out, what advice would you give them from that point in your career?
I would say just be really willing to be open to any opportunity that comes your way, and then if somebody's telling you something, a mentor does not have to be somebody in your career field or in your occupation. And that's something that I've learned, going through this experience is everybody was willing to give me advice and help. And, it could have been an investment banker to a doctor, and I was coming to my family friends and just telling them how overwhelmed and stressed I was, and everybody had such a good tidbit of...
That's phenomenal advice, everybody. Find mentors. They don't have to be somebody working in your... Say that again. They don't have to be somebody working in your store, in your field.
Somebody who feeds your soul. It wants the best for you.
Oh, that's great. That is great stuff. And you see, I take notes because when we get to the end, I want to remind myself these great little nuggets. Okay, so unpause. So you're young, Atlas comes in, they give you a mentor, I don't want to tell us where
I
go
keep
from
kind
there.
of pushing forward and doing, and then the Oregon Grille was also bought with the Valley Inn. Right. So they started the opening process, and pretty quickly after, they kind of came to me and were like, we want to get you ready to open the Oregon Grille events. So that was the first time somebody had really taken an interest in my career like that, in a sense that they were going to give me this new property. So I just started really learning by doing there. Again, it was the whole situation again, but I already had that experience, so I wasn't so nervous.
So you're jockeying between two stores at this point.
Now I'm going kind of back and forth. The Oregon Grille's just getting ready, and then it's all the firsts again. So, it was our first party, and then it's the first Big 50 top cocktail party, and then it's the first buyout. So then again, I felt that I was back to square one.
And you can't screw any of them up. How about that?
I couldn't screw any of it up because, you need the word of mouth.
Absolutely.
So I realized that consistent piece was just going to get me so far up there.
And as a consumer, I'll say, and I'm a big fan of the Atlas places. I mean, I'm just a guy that goes to them. Their standards are high.
Yes.
There's pressure there, I'm sure.
There's a lot of pressure to just keep up and make sure everybody knows everybody in this town.
Well, that is true.
So one phone call to somebody else can either make a day or break it.
No, that's great advice. And with their standards high, you have to clearly elevate your game, right?
Yes, certainly.
And keep it, not just elevate it, keep it elevated.
Yeah, so there was a time I remember I was working and opening the Grille, and I called around to every local restaurant and pretended that I was going to be hosting an event, so I could get their event packages and just really see what everybody was offering and what, in the grand scheme of things, I could kind of start working to set the Valley Inn and Oregon Grille apart in private dining.
Oh, that's great. Because, by the way, I've been to both of them plenty of times. Not that I've had private events. I'd love you to throw me a private event, by the way.
Yeah, we'll get a DML party.
DML, if you're watching, you know Mike Naylor.
Yes.
Andrew will set this up for us. Totally. The standards are high. I keep saying that because that's something that all of us should aspire to in any industry. You want to be with a company with high standards.
Yeah.
You want to reach those high standards. But yes, for a young guy at that point, you're now a grizzled veteran in your mid-20s. Yeah. But, that level of prestige and that level of service, you got to raise your game and stay up
And
there.
they'd already had such a reputation.
Totally.
So the Valley Inn had to step it up.
Yeah, and Oregon Grille was brand new.
It was brand new, so there was a lot of unknown those first couple years. And
okay, so you've been doing this a couple years now. What's a day in the life of Andrew like now?
Right now, I spend a lot of time connecting with clients, and that's something that's really recent within the past, 6 months, that I've really taken a sense of looking at the clients and the relationships in the business and realizing that just anybody who inquires for a party is, important to my business and the reputation of the Atlas Group, and just keeping all of that moving along.
So you're running parties and managing the relationships of your, almost your client list at this point.
Yeah, so I'm planning parties, and then I'm trying to, get more offensive and reach out to people and let them know what we can offer.
Oh, that's great to hear that. Everybody be offensive, and that's not in the funny way.
Yeah,
be on the off. I tell people that work for me, be proactive, not reactive.
Exactly. So I've started, there was a lot of business that I had at the Valley Inn that I just kind of kept pushing, and I think the biggest thing for me was learning that you can keep those relationships going, because when I got into the industry, I wasn't so aware of relationships and how important they are.
You thought one party was one party?
One party, and then it's the next, and I think I was always, you're on the hamster wheel that first couple of years, so I just kept going, and I wasn't nourishing the relationships. So now I feel that I have so much return business, and that's actually what really got me fired up about
return business is crushing it.
Yeah. I would say now, instead of being in the restaurant business, I look at myself as being in the hospitality industry, because it's about, hosting people and being hospitable and taking the phone calls late at night and the emails throughout the day and just really connecting with the guests so then they have a great experience. They're going to come back.
I love this, Andrew, because you and I for everybody watching, we know each other, but we've never talked about. Yeah. I purposely ahead of this didn't ask you these kind of questions because I thought it'd be better to ask them in this context. That's an impressive statement. Being in the relationship business is what really all of us in the business world are in some way, shape, or form.
I remember when it changed for me specifically.
Tell me.
Is I had a client that was, they had all the corporate parties. They were in Green Spring Station right down from the Valley Inn, and they had every corporate event with us, and it just got so fluid. He'd call me, I want the party, I want what menu he wanted, and it just was so easy that all of a sudden he called me for a rehearsal dinner for his daughter. So to have that like personal relationship kind of form from just being business.
Because that's pressure.
It's pressure because then I have to, perform well for this rehearsal dinner. And then that's when it really like hit for me that if I do well on the rehearsal dinner, I could get a baby shower. That'll turn into a bridal shower. That will turn into a 5th birthday.
You left wedding out.
I'm not trying to host a lot of weddings, but...
No, I love these. I mean, it's important, I think. Now, this is the old guy talking to the young guy, and we're friends, but it's important to remind yourself of those ahas, I think. Like the way, I'm glad you said there's a moment where something hits you, because I think, looking back on my own career, there's a lot of aha moments, and I try really hard to lean into them and remember them, because that's where all the learning happens.
Certainly.
That's where all the learning happens. Okay, so keep that's your a day in the life, a week in the life. We always kind of pivot to talk to us about your sales and marketing. This podcast is around how people crush it in business.
Yeah.
But it's always a little, we slant towards sales and marketing. Somebody your age is involved in social media.
Yes.
It's been part of your life. But as you've gotten, further into your business career, you're now fully selling, you clearly are marketing, but just talk to me about the evolution from your early days till now, like what you've done marketing-wise, what's worked, what hasn't, just anything.
So marketing to me is really word of mouth and getting experiences out there and just being positive. And I've learned that if I can have a positive attitude towards, marketing myself and the Valley Inn and the Oregon Grille, that people will follow. So I've worked on doing just a lot of direct phone calls, just like really taking the time to talk on the phone with guests. I think that's the best marketing. If somebody calls me for a lead, is just gabbing on the phone with them.
Well, this is a very, very, very positive guy, everybody. I mean, I can tell you that from knowing you, but it's important. I mean, even when you're having a down day, you got to channel that positivity.
I wasn't always so positive, and I would get so overwhelmed at work. And I feel like when I started working on being more positive, the rest was following. In a weird way.
That's great. That's a great nugget. Yeah, energy, it's contagious.
And the best advice I feel like I could give somebody in my situation that was in that situation is that just to realize the grass is never greener on the other side. So you really have to nourish your side of the lawn and figure out what's going to work for me.
Dude, I love that.
And how can I market myself? How can I market my business in a way that's good for me? Because it's not greener on the other side.
And there's enough business for everybody.
Exactly.
I know that not everybody believes that. I do. I believe there's enough business for everybody. So nourishing your side of the lawn, getting your fair share, and that's not a zero-sum game. That doesn't mean other people can't be successful too.
I try never to be, jealous of other people's successes and just, always root for people and keep people happy and moving and...
Well, I see it in you, my friend. I see it in the way you market. I see it in the way you interact with people. Don't ever forget to remain positive.
I would say I never burn bridges. So even if, that can go so far, so little. So I never say no to the guest. A mentor recently actually told me that if we can say yes, or if the guest is willing to pay for it, if we can do it, and it doesn't affect anybody else at the business or another guest in the restaurant, there's no reason not to at least give them an option. So my marketing recently is I've been offering everybody something, because even if, they can't afford it, the space is too big, they will remember that I took that extra step to offer them something, and then they'll call me, I couldn't do the birthday party, but, the client grows. So one day they might have the ability to have the party. Or
you gave us that example earlier. That's great. That's great stuff. So when you said you're making outbound calls, I want you to talk to me a little bit more about, because by the way, here, these things, making outbound calls is an old school marketer's, tool.
So I almost would use it more on the after sense, is I would call people the morning after their parties and say, just give it to me, the good, the bad, the ugly, how'd it go.
That's standard for you these days?
It is now. And I think that really helped, because people, and a lot of times people are like, it's great, but people will give genuine feedback, and that's where I learn.
That's great. And you're even if you're a negative, you're still deepening the relationship.
Yeah.
And let me ask, if it's a negative, are you dealing with it head on right there?
Certainly. What can we do to correct the situation? What can we do to get your business back in the restaurant?
It warms my heart, my friend, as your old man friend, that you're doing old school stuff, despite because I think a lot of your competitors are probably just sending a text or a survey and not really dealing with it head on.
You have to count your wins, but also your losses, because they're important too. So if somebody has a negative feedback, there's always something we can learn from. And
Yeah, you said it earlier, you're in the hospitality industry. You have to figure out ways to be as hospitable as possible.
Just making people feel heard. And I think something so big that I learned in my industry is that it's not about what you're telling them. I had to learn how to tell people what they need to hear in a way that they're receptive to it. So if, they're asking for the earth, the moon, the sun, and the stars, I can only give them the earth and the moon. But you have to make it sound so it's okay, and they're going to be okay with it. And
I see you as giving them the stars too.
Yeah, well, I'll work it out, but for an upcharge, if the guest is willing to pay.
That's very good stuff. No, this is fascinating. So so you're marketing yourself. This is let me ask this question. Atlas does a ton of marketing of their places.
Yeah.
I have the app and I follow a lot of the places because of where I live and where I travel. But you're marketing a little separately from their stuff.
Trying to do more of that direct marketing for the restaurants, and that because they're taking care of the social media. They have an amazing team who's doing Instagram posts and engagement and looking on Facebook and those trends. And I just have really worked on being customer facing, positive oriented, and
yeah, that's great. Yeah, because that's why I was asking, because you're not specifically, I've watched, you're not specifically marketing your events.
Yeah.
I hear you listening, you're talking to your customers. And is the Atlas stuff well received? I mean,
Very well received.
Are you trying to, well, that's a different question. Are you trying to make sure your customer base is following all the Atlas stuff?
Now it's a lot different now because they've done such a well job and, it's spoken for itself. But originally I was trying to do a lot of, well, don't be apprehensive. They're great. It's going to be a great situation, and it has proven to be.
That's wonderful.
There's a lot of older customers and older clients that come in and they get a little scared of change, and I've learned to embrace change because I used to hate it.
Well, that's, hold on, I'm going to put that in my notes too. Talk about that for a second more. Embracing change. That's not easy for everybody.
No, and it was pretty awful. I'm an oriented guy of routine, and then all of a sudden to have Atlas come in and kind of change everything was pretty overwhelming, and I realized quickly I had to kind of get on board with it or they're not going to be successful.
And let me ask something. Running events, I would think there are changes every day.
72 minutes before an event, and I hate that. But I've learned to love it,
Well, you've got to learn to adjust. It's the reality of it.
Yeah.
If you try to tell yourself, I'm guessing, if you're trying to tell yourself it's not going to happen, then you're just going to set yourself up for disappointment and heartache.
We always make it happen.
I can tell. Look at the big smile. This guy makes it happen, everybody. Definitely makes it happen. I like to always ask people, it's great to hear the story. It's great to hear how you got here. And by the way, one of the common themes we've heard in all our podcasts is everybody's really doing great starts early. You as a host, as a first year of college, we did have one other guest that started dishwashing as a 13-year-old, but so he beat you by a little bit. But as opposed to what you're going to do and what Andrew's going to conquer in the future and what you've done in the past, what are you doing right now in the spring of 2024 with all that's going on in the world? What's kind of happening for you right now that's really working well that people could take away?
I'm working with what we have. So I think the weather is a big thing. I really want to work on ways to host a lot of outdoor events and really embrace the whole outside climate since COVID. So right now I'm really working on figuring out ways that we can have outdoor events with weather dependencies and contingencies. Because, you can't book an event and it pours, which is awful in our industry.
You go inside.
Yeah, but that's, right now I'm seeing a lot of inquiries for outside events. So that's something I'm actively working on. And
Okay. Atlas obviously is having all this success. There, Atlas is everywhere, and all the restaurants are so wonderful. I've been to, like I said, I've been to a bunch of them. What's Atlas doing right now in today's environment? What are you doing right now as part of Atlas in today's environment that's making a difference? Because I do see a lot of new restaurants and new stuff going on.
So they've worked on, they're growing exponentially faster than before. So they've just hired a new event director, which we're really excited about. That's going to kind of oversee the operations company wide. And then there's 3 event planners. There's 2 others that are at the same level as myself. So they're really working on getting us support, which has been great.
This is somebody new that you...
She's new to the company. She's our new direct report. And they got her as a resource for us, which we're very excited to have. Just somebody directly to go to that's not, the COO or the GMs of the restaurant, somebody in the industry.
Up in the game.
She's in the game and she's good, so...
Well, that's great. And Andrew, if somebody wants to do an event at any Atlas property, they can reach out to you?
Reach out to me. I'll send you in any direction, any property.
Yeah, this guy can make it happen, everybody. Look, Andrew, I made a bunch of notes here, but, talking about just doing it, talking about looking for opportunities, finding mentors, this is stuff, look, some of the people we've had on this show are a little older. Some, you're probably the youngest one we've had, and I was pumped about it because I think anybody watching, there's a lot of great little nuggets in here. Be positive. Don't burn bridges. Nourish your side of the lawn.
Yeah.
Dude, I might get that on a t-shirt for myself. Nourish your lawn, because there's plenty of business for everybody. You're crushing it, man. And I love watching you. I love talking to you about it. And look, anybody, if you see this guy out and about, talk to him. I mean, you're easy to tell. Let the crowd know.
I'm easy to talk to. I don't bite. It'll be a lot of fun.
You don't bite. No. Yeah, maybe. But Andrew, thank you, man. You've been crushing it.
Thank you for having me.
I can't wait for this to go out there and everybody to see it. But keep crushing it, man. You're around. Everybody around Baltimore, you'll see this guy around. I'm sure of it. He's everywhere. But thanks a lot,
Thank
buddy.
you so much.
So that's the end of our episode of how they crushed it. Our friend Andrew Haynes is crushing it, and we're pumped to have him here today. And hope you see him out there and out and about in Baltimore with Atlas. See you, everybody.